It's quite an odd thing when you really think about it. We live in a world that functions almost flawlessly on its own. Birds don't hold conferences to improve their melodies. Rivers don't pause to evaluate whether they're flowing correctly. Trees never spend sleepless nights wondering if their branches are growing in the right direction. And yet we, humans, the so-called rational creatures, the brilliant thinkers, manage to suffer from problems that don't even exist. Strange, isn't it? Your life might actually be completely fine. The sun still rises, your lungs still breathe, your heart still beats, and still, somewhere in the background, a voice whispers, "Something is wrong." But have you ever paused and asked, wrong? With what exactly? The human mind is a remarkable instrument. It can imagine, invent, create, and dream. But when left unattended, it behaves like a mischievous monkey let loose in a royal palace, pressing every button, pulling every rope, just to see what happens. It starts manufacturing problems, conjuring shadows, building tiny phantoms that feel so important, until you shine the light of awareness on them and they disappear instantly. I've said before, the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Yet most people live like obedient followers of their own thoughts, running after illusions, trying to fix issues that were never there in the first place. You've noticed this, haven't you? How often do you stress over what might happen tomorrow? Or replay moments from yesterday as if you could edit a film that has already ended? It's absurd when you step back and see it. The real trouble starts when the mind, meant to serve life, believes it must control life. That, my friends, is where unnecessary suffering begins. The ego, that fragile little self-image we carry, is terribly insecure. It wants certainty. It wants safety. It wants importance, approval, endless reassurance. And so it builds a fantasy world where everything must follow its rules. But life was never designed to be controlled. Life is wild, fluid, unpredictable, beautifully untamed. The ego tries to hold the ocean in its hands, and when it cannot, it calls it chaos. It tries to stop the wind from changing direction, and when it fails, it calls it loss. It tries to make permanent the things that were only ever meant to be temporary, and when they slip away, it calls it heartbreak. But here's the punchline. Life was never broken. It's our demands, our expectations, our insistence that life should obey our plans. That is where the suffering hides. Trying to control everything is like trying to freeze the clouds in the sky. We forget that their beauty is in their movement. I once said, muddy water clears best when left alone. The same is true of the mind. The more you poke at it, fight it, fix it, the more disturbed it becomes. But if you simply leave it be, if you stop meddling and let it settle, clarity returns on its own. It settles, it clears, and suddenly you begin to realize that nothing was ever wrong with life itself, only with the thoughts you were believing about it. The mind is like a mirror. It reflects whatever image you hold before it. Yet instead of changing what we project, we scold the mirror for showing us the truth of our own inner world. This is what I mean when I say the mind creates problems that were never real. It's as if the mind is constantly searching for something to repair because the act of fixing makes it feel needed, significant, alive. And when there's nothing left to fix, when life is simply unfolding as it should, the mind becomes uneasy. So it invents an enemy, conjures a fear, manufactures a crisis out of thin air. What if I lose this? What if I'm not enough? What if they reject me? And before you know it, you're caught in a web woven entirely from imagination, fighting shadows as though they were solid monsters. The The moment you agree with these thoughts, the illusion becomes your reality. The anxiety turns into a storm, and you label the storm as my life. But life, in its pure form, is never anxious. Trees do not worry about their leaves turning brown. The ocean doesn't wish its waves were bigger or quieter. The stars don't panic about being overlooked by the morning. They simply express themselves. They simply are. And you, though you've forgotten it, are made of that same universe. A cosmic dance wearing the temporary mask of a person called you. But somewhere in the play, you forgot that you're part of the performance. You started believing you're the director, the controller, the one responsible for making every scene unfold perfectly. Control, however, is the grand illusion. The ego whispers, if I just hold everything tight enough, I'll be safe. Yet the things we grip with fear are the things that slip away the fastest. What you cling to begins to hurt the moment you refuse to let go. You cannot cage life because life is what you are. And when you glimpse this truth, even for a moment, something extraordinary happens. The mind begins to soften. The fears lose their teeth. The monsters fade back into the imagination they came from. A deeper silence emerges, not because you forced your thoughts to stop, but because you recognized they were never a threat. So perhaps, instead of trying to shut your mind down, you can simply watch it. Let the thoughts drift across the inner sky like passing clouds. Perhaps, instead of trying to fix yourself, you can notice that you were never broken, just lost in your own reflections. Because the problems the mind creates are like ripples on a still pond. They aren't the lake itself. They are only movements on its surface. The moment you stop chasing the ripples, you finally notice the beauty of the water beneath. And that, my friend, is where the real journey begins. Not in controlling the mind, but in understanding it. The mind's restlessness is not an enemy. It is merely the voice of a frightened ego, trembling at the thought of dissolving into the spacious, quiet presence that is your real nature. If you look closely, a human being is not truly a solid creature of muscle and bone, but a shimmering pattern of energy, always moving, continuously unfolding. But somewhere in the unfolding, this radiant pattern began to believe it was a small, separate object. That illusion is what we refer to as the ego. And the ego, well, it isn't wicked, it isn't a villain, it's simply confused. It's like a little child lost in a supermarket, clutching a shopping list it can't read, trying very hard to look important. The ego wants control because it believes it's alone. It says, if I don't hold on, I'll disappear. If I don't plan everything, I'll fail. If I don't think of every danger, something awful will happen. And so it spins and spins until it becomes dizzy from its own fear. Trying to control the future, I once said, is like scooping the current out of a river and storing it in a bucket. The moment you do that, it's no longer a river. It becomes stagnant, lifeless water. Exactly this is what happens to the mind when it clings to control. It loses its natural movement. It becomes rigid, frozen. The ego, of course, loves to masquerade this stiffness as intelligence. It says, I'm not afraid. I'm being responsible. But if you look closely, you'll notice something. The more we attempt to control life, the more life seems to tighten its grip on us. We start scheduling every minute, interpreting every sentence, planning every emotion as if we were designing a machine instead of living a life. And slowly, without noticing, we become prisoners of our own strategies. We turn into a spider tangled in its own web, weaving threads of thought to feel safe, then wondering why those same threads hold us captive. joke is this: control is the very thing that makes life uncontrollable, because control is born from fear. The fear that life might not hold you, guide you, sustain you. And when you fear life, you pull away from it, you resist it, you stand outside the flow, and anything you fight, you give power to. So the ego, in attempting to protect itself, becomes the creator of its own danger. You can see this everywhere. The student who studies not from curiosity, but from fear of failure, tightening their mind until learning becomes agony. The lover who clings too tightly, terrified of losing the one they adore, and in that very grip pushes them further away. The seeker who meditates with the desperate intention to achieve peace, only to find tension growing stronger. All of these are acts of control, hiding under the costume of devotion. And the irony is exquisite. The effort to secure happiness is what makes happiness vanish. The craving for safety is itself the very experience of insecurity. When you grasp at certainty, you reinforce doubt. When you try to freeze a moment in time, you forget that impermanence is the very ingredient that makes it precious. Think about it. The most stunning moments in life are fleeting. A sunset, a burst of laughter, the innocence of a first kiss, the rhythm of rain tapping on a window. They arrive, they touch you, and they leave, like guests who never stay long but somehow leave eternity glowing in their wake. But the ego does not trust the nature of things. It says, no, this must last forever. And so it tightens, grasps, clings, unaware that in holding the moment too tightly, it destroys what made it beautiful. Like someone trying to catch a soap bubble, the very touch that tries to keep it alive is the touch that makes it burst. This is the foundation of illusion, the belief that life must be managed, that existence is some puzzle in need of solving. But life is not a problem to be fixed. It is a mystery to be lived. And the deeper you fall into that mystery, the clearer it becomes that there was never anything to control in the first place. We are as inseparable from the universe as a wave is from the sea. A wave that tries to command the ocean will only exhaust itself. But the moment it sees, I am the ocean, the very notion of control dissolves. There is movement, yes, but no separate mover. There are thoughts, but no isolated thinker behind them. There is life, but no little me trying to steer it all. Just the vast cosmic unfolding, playing the part of a human being for a short while. And as long as the ego believes it must run the show, it will keep inventing illusions to justify its own job. It will say, here's another problem, another thing to fix, another worry to keep me alive. Because if no problems exist, the ego becomes unemployed. A mind without a job begins to notice silence. And silence, you see, is the ego's greatest fear. Because in silence, the ego feels itself thinning, dissolving, disappearing. That's why people can't just sit still. They must check something, adjust something, plan something, do something, anything but simply be. Yet silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of reality. The ego labels it boring, but the wise call it peace. Think of it this way. You don't consciously operate your heart, do you? You don't sit there commanding it. All right, pulse now. You don't grow your hair manually, or decide when to digest lunch, or force yourself to fall asleep like flipping a switch. These things happen by themselves, effortlessly, without supervision. And that same natural intelligence, the one that grows fingernails, is the very intelligence that moves the stars and spins entire galaxies. Do you really believe it requires your micromanagement to handle a Tuesday afternoon? When you begin to trust that flow, that unseen wisdom, something extraordinary happens. You stop struggling against the river and start drifting with it. And in that drifting, a forgotten truth reappears. Life already knows what it's doing. It doesn't need your instructions, only your presence, your openness, your willingness to experience it. So maybe the point is not to dominate the mind or silence it by brute force, but to see through it, to recognize that the one trying to control everything is the very creator of chaos. And once this is understood clearly, there is no more battle. The illusion collapses by itself. As I've said before, muddy water clears best when left alone. Stop stirring and clarity arrives. Stop grasping and peace begins to shine. In that peace, a remarkable realization dawns. You were never the controller. You were never even the thinker. You were simply the awareness watching existence unfold perfectly, moment by moment. It's a funny habit we humans have. When nothing's wrong, we go hunting for something that might be wrong. When life is quiet, the mind whispers, something must be missing. It's as though we're allergic to peace and need to fill it with noise, commentary, questions, and plans that lead nowhere. We think so much about living that we forget to live. Now, thought itself is not the enemy. Thought is a magnificent tool. It builds bridges, composes symphonies, designs spacecraft, brews a good cup of tea. But when the tool starts using the carpenter, that's when trouble begins. That is overthinking, the orchestra endlessly rehearsing long after the symphony is over. A person who thinks constantly, I once said, eventually has nothing left to think about except thoughts. And so they lose contact with the world and inhabit a landscape made entirely of mirrors, reflections of reflections, illusions chasing illusions, until they can't find the exit. You felt this, I'm sure. A tiny doubt appears like a whisper. What if I fail? And suddenly, the mind produces an entire film. Full soundtrack, dramatic scenes, tragic ending, all crafted from pure imagination. Brilliant storytelling, yet completely fictional. Overthinking manufactures suffering the way a factory produces smoke. The machine keeps running even when the raw material is gone. Here's the paradox. The more you try to stop thinking, the more thinking increases. You try to relax and start thinking about whether you're relaxing correctly. You compare your relaxation to someone else's relaxation. It's absurd, but beautifully, hilariously human. Thought multiplies the moment you identify with it. Like rabbits in a wide meadow, the more attention you give them, the faster they breed. The point isn't to kill the rabbits, but to remember you are not one of them. You are the meadow, wide, quiet, open, a space in which thoughts come and go. To have faith, I said once, is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't clutch the water. If you grab at it, you sink. Overthinking is precisely that, gripping the water, trying to force the river into shapes of your choosing. And the tighter you cling, the faster you drown. So many people are drowning not in life, but in the waves of their own imagination. They mistake turbulence for depth, confusion for insight, and constant analysis for awareness. But awareness is something different. It isn't an action. It isn't something you do. It is something you allow. It is the quiet noticing beneath all activity, the stillness behind the movement, the open sky in which all clouds pass without leaving a scar. Noise fades. The vast space in which thoughts arise and dissolve begins to reveal itself. When you watch your mind without judgment, something remarkable occurs. The storm calms on its own. I once said, the more a thing strives to be permanent, the more it tends toward lifelessness. And this is especially true of thought. The thinker craves permanence. The thinker wants conclusions, answers, certainties. But life is not a conclusion. Life is a question that endlessly unfolds. And the beauty of a question is that it needs no answer. It is the answer in motion. Overthinking, by contrast, is the refusal to dance. It is standing at the edge of the floor, analyzing the rhythm, measuring the tempo, judging every step, only to realize the song has ended and you never moved. Look closely, and you'll notice that overthinking always carries a shadow of fear. It is the mind's attempt to secure itself against the unknown, but the unknown is the only place where life truly occurs. The known is the past. The unknown is alive. So when the mind fears uncertainty, it fears life itself. That is the tragedy of overthinking. A cage built from thoughts of safety, yet one that suffocates the very freedom it seeks. Picture it, standing before a wide, flowing river, the current of existence. The overthinker hesitates on the bank, measuring the depth, calculating the temperature, weighing the risk, and by day's end, the river has moved on, leaving them dry, safe, and unfulfilled. The wise, however, smiles and steps in, knowing the only way to know the river is to immerse oneself in it. Consider our modern life, always connected, always comparing, always planning. We are a civilization addicted to thought. We think about happiness more than we feel it. We talk about love more than we allow it. We plan for the future more than we inhabit the present. Yet the moment we stop that mental noise, even briefly, the world transforms. The sunlight on a wall becomes poetry. The sound of our own breath becomes music. We realize this right now is what we've been chasing all along, and it cannot be thought into existence. It can only be noticed, already present, already here. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to fix your mind, it begins to fix itself. Stop trying to understand every thought, and understanding arises naturally. Life waits patiently for us to step aside. The real you, deep down, is not a puppet of circumstance. The real you is the universe itself, and the universe does not fret over what may go wrong. It moves effortlessly, from birth to death, from tide to tide, without anxiety. Overthinking is forgetting this. It is imagining you are separate from the flow, that you are the captain steering the boat instead of water effortlessly moving along its course. So the next time the mind spins its web of what ifs, you can smile and say, "Ah, there you are again, old friend. Don't fight it. Don't feed it. Just watch it dance, the wind playing upon the surface of the lake." And in the quiet space between thoughts, you may hear something deeper, not a voice, but presence, not noise, but stillness. That stillness is you. That silence is not empty. It is full of life. It is what you've been seeking through all that thinking. Once the mind grows quiet, the storm settles, and a curious realization emerges. The world isn't chaotic or frightening. It isn't a puzzle to solve. It is a dance, intricate, spontaneous, where every step, every stumble, every rise and fall belongs perfectly to the music of existence. And then it dawns on you. The world was never broken. Only your perception was cracked. What a relief it is to realize it wasn't life that needed fixing. It was your seeing that needed softening. The ego spends its life trying to flatten the waves of the ocean, demanding calm, predictability, and stillness. But an ocean without waves is a puddle, and life without contrast, without ups and downs, would be just as dull. The universe, in its infinite playfulness, designed life to be textured, light and shadow, joy and sorrow, sound and silence. Without noise, there is no music. Without tension, there is no story. Without darkness, we would never notice the light. Pleasure can only be felt fully because we know pain. That is the rhythm of being alive, the pulse of opposites. When this is understood, suffering takes on a new meaning. It is no longer a mistake. It becomes part of the symphony. Yet most people attempt to live the melody without the bass line. They desire happiness without sorrow, peace without change, life without death. And that's like trying to draw a mountain without valleys. You cannot have one side of the coin without the other. The ego despises this truth. It craves control, and control demands preference. This, but not that. It delights in the sunrise, yet resents the sunset, failing to see they are simply the same event from different angles. Life, however, does not discriminate. It embraces it all, joy and grief, birth and decay, because it knows they are inseparable. Have you ever wandered through a forest after a fire? At first, it seems tragic. Trees blackened, earth silent. And yet, months later, new shoots appear, green, vivid, alive. The fire was not destruction. It was transformation. So it is with life. Every apparent loss clears the path for renewal. Every heartbreak opens the heart to love more deeply. Every silence after noise prepares the way for new music. The universe does not err. It merely changes forms. You and I are as continuous with the physical universe as a wave is with the ocean. When the wave rises, we call it creation. When it falls, we call it death. But the ocean itself remains vast, eternal, unbroken. That ocean, my friend, is you. Yet we play a strange game. We spend our lives dividing reality into good and bad, right and wrong, success and failure. But the moment you judge life, you stop seeing it. You become like a critic at a concert, so preoccupied with evaluating the notes that you forget to hear the music itself. Existence is not a problem to solve. It is an art to experience. It is not meant to be analyzed. It is meant to be lived. And yet, we have grown obsessed with controlling the painting, measuring every stroke, forgetting to feel the colors. And still, when you let go, when you drop the ruler, something magical happens. You begin to notice beauty in imperfection, in chaos, in the moments that defy logic. Even your confusion, your mistakes, your doubts, they are part of the design. The world does not need saving. It needs seeing. Once you see clearly, you stop trying to fix what was never broken. You stop fighting life, and you begin to dance with it. We do not come into this world. We come out of it, like leaves from a tree. You are not a stranger here. You are not an outsider attempting to make sense of the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself through human eyes. You are the cosmos having a fleeting moment of self-awareness, whispering, "Ah, so this is what I am." And in that moment of recognition, the war within ends. How can the ocean be at war with its own waves? How can life fight against itself? When you truly see life as it is, when you stop insisting that life match the picture in your mind, a quiet peace begins to bloom. Not the peace of everything going your way, but the peace of no longer needing it to. A lightness enters, an ease, and you realize everything is already unfolding exactly as it must. The seasons turn, the stars drift, the heart beats, and every laugh, every tear, every rise and fall is the universe expressing itself flawlessly. The world was never broken. It only appeared broken to the one trying to control it. And when the illusion of control dissolves, what remains is harmony, vast, subtle, and profound. a harmony so complete that it even includes your sense of disharmony. What a marvelous trick. Even your confusion fits perfectly into the pattern. Even your mistakes are the universe exploring possibilities through you. So the invitation is simple. Stop fixing. Stop judging. Stop demanding that life add up to something. Instead, watch. Observe the play as you would a sunset, without trying to improve it. Feel the hum of existence beneath your skin, and you'll see that everything, yes, everything, is already in its rightful place. The world does not need your control. It needs your participation. It needs you to dance. Because when you dance with life, you don't think about each step. You move with the rhythm, trusting the music to guide you. And that is the moment you awaken to a beauty that was always here. Life has never betrayed you. It has simply been waiting for you to see it clearly. Alive, whole, unbroken. Here we are, at the end of this long reflection. And perhaps you've begun to sense it, that gentle truth beneath the noise. There was never anything wrong with life. There was only the illusion that you needed to manage it. You spent so long searching for peace, freedom, fulfillment, in thoughts, in plans, in accomplishments. But they were here all along, quietly watching you, like the sky watching clouds drift by. We humans are curious creatures. We build entire philosophies, religions, systems, just to teach ourselves how to be what we already are. It's as absurd as the ocean attending a class on how to be wet. And perhaps that's the greatest joke of all. The very effort to become something keeps you from simply being. When you finally stop striving, when you drop the exhausting project of fixing yourself, everything you were seeking reveals itself within you. The meaning of life, I once said, is just to be alive. It is so simple, so obvious, yet everyone rushes about as if something more were required. We behave as though existence owes us an explanation. But what if existence is the explanation? What if the purpose of the dance is simply to dance? Life is not a riddle, it's a song. And every note, even the dissonant ones, belongs. Of course, the ego whispers, I understand, but how do I let go? Tell me the method. Yet the moment you try to let go, you're clinging again. You can't force surrender any more than you can force sleep. It comes when you stop trying, when you stop straining for stillness and notice that stillness has been here all along. Letting life be is not a technique. It's a recognition, a remembering. It's seeing that you were never separate from the flow, never the one steering the dance, only the dance itself. Like the Zen saying goes, sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself. This is not laziness, it is trust. It is understanding that the same intelligence that moves galaxies moves through you, guiding your breath, beating your heart, arranging every moment with unfathomable precision. And when you truly feel that, control becomes unnecessary. You laugh more easily, cry more freely, forgive more quickly. You see that the cracks are what let the light in. We keep waiting for perfection before we allow happiness. But happiness isn't the result of perfection. It's the recognition of the sacred hidden in the ordinary. The sound of rain, warm tea between your palms, sunlight wandering across the floor, miracles disguised as routine. But we miss them because we're too busy thinking about life instead of living it. When you realize you live only in the present, not yesterday, not tomorrow, your whole experience changes. This breath, this sound, this awareness is all there has ever been. The future is imagination. The past is memory. The present isn't a moment. It's eternity unfolding now. And when you stop running from it, peace finds because it was never gone. Letting life be is not passive. It is the highest form of participation. It means you're so attuned to the rhythm of existence that you no longer stand apart from it. You move like a dancer who has forgotten the choreography, yet flows perfectly with the music. And in that state, every hardship carries meaning. Every detour feels sacred. You see that nothing was wasted. Everything was preparing you for this insight. The more you try to control the world, the less control you have. But when you relax, the world moves with you. That is the secret. The dance begins when you stop fighting the rhythm. Surrender isn't losing. It's returning to the truth that life was carrying you the entire time. Life isn't happening to you. It's happening as you. You and the universe were never two. You are life, playing, breathing, dreaming, pretending for a brief moment to be a fragile little person with problems. And when you see through the game, when you smile at the beautiful absurdity of it all, the world becomes fresh again, alive, vivid, untouched. So, my friend, stop trying to fix what was never broken. Stop chasing what was never missing. Stop searching for the piece that has been watching you from the beginning. Let life be. And when you do, you'll smile. Not because you finally understand everything, but because you finally don't need to. For the greatest wisdom is not found in knowing, but in trusting. Not in holding on, but in letting go.